All right, okay. So we've missed quite a bit. But never mind, it's all. Uh,
Take it.
well, just make sure you share it with the others. So next time, I think before the beginning of class, make sure you remind me to record. The second time, I forgot to record. All right, never mind. All right. The competitive edge, the competitive advantage, just because you have a certain unique way of behaving, right? Organizations that provide special service that makes people remember that, right? We talk about, for example, branding. What is branding? Branding is nothing else more than when you use a product, you are satisfied with the product and you remember that product because that product creates a satisfaction, a positive value to how you look at it, right? If I were to ask you, what would be a good, quick hunger fix, right? Whenever you are hungry, how do you fix? How do you satisfy your hunger? And a lot of people would just say, well, Maggie, right? So the first thing that comes to their mind is Maggie instant noodle. Why is Maggie a quick, why do people relate satisfying hunger to Maggie, right? And probably not anything else, although there are Indomie, there are probably now a lot of ramen in the market. But then they would probably name Maggie simply because they've always associated Maggie with that positive feeling that they have whenever they take Maggie, right? The same thing that people always associate certain things or certain products, right? When we talk about toothpaste, a lot of people will immediately relate to probably Colgate. Why? Because they've been brought up by using Colgate, and using Colgate has always given them the positive feeling, right? That satisfaction of using the product, right? The same thing when you talk about flight, a lot of people think about Air Asia, right? And why? Because Air Asia has always given them the positive service. But some people probably don't like Air Asia. Why? Because they've had some negative experiences associated with using that product, and as such, they are turned off, right? So whenever we talk about branding, branding is about positive experience at using a product. And that, in a way, creates a competitive edge of that particular organization, of that particular company, of that particular product against all the other products in the market, right? So where does that positive experience come from? The positive experience comes from, in fact, the organization culture, because people interact with their customers, people serve the customers based on the culture of their organization, right? So again, all this important part of organization is about a shared system, right? A shared assumption and also a shared system of meanings and communications or mutual understanding. What do you understand about how you are going to behave within your organization, and what is the expectations of you within that organization? And as such, that also goes into the management of the organization, that goes into how the organization operates and how the organization is run, right? So this is the importance of organization culture. The organization culture actually translates into what the organization is all about, right? You talk about McDonald's, then you think about good fast food that is served efficiently and it is value for money, and you can always expect it to be clean, right? I've never had food poisoning whenever I take McDonald's, but I know I've had food poisoning when I take some other fast food. So in a way, that sticks in my mind. Whenever I think about fast food, I will always associate with McDonald's, for example, because I've always had that positive experience with McDonald's. Okay? So this goes on to explain about the importance of organization culture, influence on employee motivation, why employees do certain things, why employees want to behave in a certain way, because there's a culture behind it, right? Morale, goodwill, productivity, efficiency, quality of work, innovation and creativity. Now this is important. For example, you have, for example, the 3M company. I think I've talked to you about 3M, right? Anyone used 3M products before? One good example is, for example, the Post-it notes, right? The Scotch tape, right? And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Teflon pens are also 3M, a 3M product, right? Now, 3M stands for Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, right? The 3Ms, Minnesota Mining, Manufacturing. And it is known to be a very innovative organization because it has so many patents. Now, why is it known to be innovative and creative? Because the assumption at 3M is that people are always encouraged to find and develop new ideas. They are always encouraged to work together to come up with new products, to come up with innovations. And the organization will always support them in coming up with new products. And when you talk about innovation, probably you think also about Google. And I think a lot of you, if you Google, right? Look up Google in the Google, you will find that Google is one of the most sought after employers. A lot of people would want to work with Google simply because they see Google as a very satisfying and interesting place to work. Why? Because the organization culture at Google allows people to work independently. There's nobody to actually supervise their work, and people are expected to be productive at Google, right? So you will not have any supervisor to ensure that you do certain work. You're free to do work whenever you want and whatever work you done, as long as you are productive. You can always read up Google because Google will allow employees to do whatever they want. And if ever a Google employee wants to learn something, it doesn't matter what they want to learn. They might want to learn about playing the piano. They want to learn about playing guitars. They may want to learn about baking cakes. They want to learn about making bread. They want to learn about ikebana. They want to learn about bonsai. And Google will pay for their learning, right? So if they were to attend an ikebana class, Google will pay for that ikebana class. Why? Because Google believes in the employees' continuous learning, right? So employees can learn whatever they want because Google sees as learning to be important and learning to contribute towards the productivity of employees, right? So in other words, well-developed culture will give satisfaction and happiness to the employee, just like people are happy working for Google, okay? Now, this is what I've inferred to in the beginning. The three levels of organization culture by Schein. And if you look at the three levels of organization culture, you will see artifacts, espouse values, and the assumptions and beliefs. We've talked quite a bit about the assumptions and beliefs as being the deepest part of the organization culture. But for this, let's now begin with the superficial, or what is the most external elements of the organization culture, which are the artifacts. Now, artifacts, according to Schein, are the visible organization structures and business processes. How you can actually see artifacts with the naked eye whenever you walk into the organizations, whenever you walk into an organization, the first thing that you notice within the organization is artifacts. So artifacts are anything that are visible. Furnitures, right? The colors that the organization uses, the decorations, the symbols, the logos, these are all the artifacts. And of course, when you walk into the organization, you can see the employees, how the employees behave, how the employees talk to each other, how the employees communicate or interact with the customers. These are in fact all artifacts, right? You can see, for example, the rules and regulations that are pasted. These again are the artifacts. Nowadays, in times of COVID-19, one very visible architect, whenever you want to go into any establishment, whenever you want to go into any outlet, is that you see someone taking your temperature. You see people queuing up, and then there will be someone who takes your temperature, and then either you scan your particulars or write down or record your particulars. Now, these are all visible artifacts, right? I will usually go to any establishments when they have all these procedures in place, right? They make sure that people social distance themselves. They make sure that everyone who enters into the outlet, into the premises of the outlet, has not having high temperature or not having fever. They check the temperatures. They make sure that people register either by scanning or recording their particulars. They make sure that they have disinfectant for people to use. Now, the more that they adhere to this procedure, then I, as a customer, will begin to think that they are more concerned about the safety of their customers. And as such, I consider them to be good business outlets, right? So artifacts are anything that can be seen with the naked eye. You don't have to go deeper. You can actually see them. The cleanliness of a place is in fact an artifact, right? Tables and chairs that are neatly arranged in the restaurants. They are the artifacts, right? The state or the condition of the table, the cleanliness, right? The atmosphere, or what people say, the ambience of the restaurants, or the outlets. These are all the artifacts. They are readily seen by the naked eye. And deeper level after the artifacts, so artifacts are anything that is external, then the deeper part of culture is the espoused values. Now, espoused values are those values that are considered to be important, just like McDonald's has QSVC, quality, service, value, and cleanliness. Now, those are the four values that are being promoted by McDonald's because they consider those values to be important for the success of their organization. So those are the espoused values, right? So the other thing, although we have, for example, Air Asia, visible organization structure, we can read everywhere. Everyone can fly, Now, that is visible. We know that. But what are the values behind everyone can fly, right? So the espoused values behind that, we must make. So AirAsia think about making their tickets cheaper, their fare cheaper than any other airline. So they have a strategy that actually ensures that people can actually buy cheaper tickets for them to fly anywhere in the world. That is the value to them. And the other value is that they have faster turnaround time. So if other airline companies take about 45 minutes to an hour for the plane to land and fly back again, then AirAsia has a shorter turnaround time of 20 minutes. That as soon as the plane lands, within 20 minutes, the plane is already ready to take off again, for example, right? So that is a faster turnaround time in the case of, and that is the value that AirAsia uses and espouses to make sure that people or its employees work towards that fast turnaround time. They work to ensure that their costs are always put at minimum. So espoused values being the second level of culture are those values that are being told to employees that these should be a practice of the organization, right? And the relationship between those espoused values and the artifacts, because of those values, then you can see how people behave towards the customers, for example, right? Now, if your espoused values is the customer is always right, that is a value. You must always respect your customer. Then the artifact will be the behavior that the employee has towards its customer. That the employee will always be polite to his customer. The employee will always find or seek to please the customers. Why? Because the value is the customer is always right. Right? But if you have an organization that say, don't care too much about the customer lah. As soon as they come, you just serve them and let them go away. Right? So that is the value. That the customer is not the important. What is important is their money. So they just work with the money. All they care is the customer buys and then they go. Right? Now, people, I think those from China, I don't know, you may not have had the opportunity to be under communist China, where under the revolution, where everyone is considered or treated to be equal, right? And as such, if you were to go and buy any product, if you were to go and buy bread, you only will have one type of bread at the shop. So whether you buy that bread or not, it doesn't matter to the people who sell the bread, right? You just take whatever you have. So as such, service is not important, right? It doesn't matter whether you serve or have good service or not. People will still have to buy whatever they want simply because they don't have the choice, right? But as China began to have a much more competitive market, then service becomes much more important, right? When one of the Malaysian companies that went to China to do business was actually Paxson's, right? Paxson's departmental stores, when they begin to operate in China in the late 80s, in the late 80s and 90s, right? When China started its new economy, Paxson opened its departmental store in Shanghai. And in Shanghai, at that time, people or their employees from China were not used in providing service, because all this while service has not been important in the selling of goods. People had no choice but to take whatever they want. But when Parkson opened a store, department store in China, when the new economy began in China, they had to concentrate on providing service simply because they wanted to be competitive. And as such, they had to train employees how to provide service. Why? Because with service, customers will have better and positive shopping experience at Parsons outlets. Now, that is the artifact. The value is, espoused value is, you must serve your customers well. And they are trained to serve their customers. Now, that goes into the assumptions and beliefs. We'll look at why Parkson believe that service is important. Service is important because with good service, people will come back and shop at your outlet. So the assumptions and belief is what we believe about certain things. And in this case, what we believe about customer service. We believe that customer service is important. We assume it to be important because it is what makes selling and marketing successful for the organization. That is the assumption. The assumption is that we must provide good service in order for people to be satisfied and in order for them to come back to us in the future to do business with us, right? And that is the assumption and service. The espoused values is we must always provide good service to the customers. And the artifact is you can actually see employees serving their customers well. So these are actually the three levels of organization culture. Artifact being the most external, how people behave, what we see at the organization. The espoused values are what the organization considers to be important, what the organization considers to be worthy at the organization. And the assumptions and belief is why those values are considered to be important, right? So the basic way of looking at organization culture is according to these three levels, which are artifacts, espoused values, and the deepermost, innermost will be the assumptions and beliefs behind those values and the behavior of the employees. Okay? So as a conclusion, what we can say about organization culture is that organization culture enables the organization to be adaptable to changing environment, right? So people will know how to act in different situations because they have the assumptions behind the values that they practice and behave in any situation that the organization faces, right? Managers need to understand the nature and role of culture. So culture will help to determine how employees perform within an organization, how employees find solutions. So if, for example, honesty, integrity is considered to be a good value. Why is honesty and integrity important? If that is the value, then people will begin to behave with honesty and integrity. That would be the artifact. Now, what would be the assumption? You believe that integrity is important because integrity makes sure that things are done correctly. Because the organization will not get into trouble if the employees always practice honesty, right? And as such, managers know what they need to do, what they can tell the employees, and how they can manage their employees, right? So organization culture is always very important because it spells out how, in the end, employees are expected to behave and how employees are to serve the customers and what they are expected to do in any situation. So corporate culture or organization has an impact on any day-to-day running management of the company, what decisions are made and how the decisions are made, right? And finally, as a learning organization develops a strong learning culture, just like Google, because Google believes that employees who are successful, employees who are happy, employees who are innovative are employees that are continuously learning on their job. Not only learn about how to do their work, but they are also free to learn about anything else because Google believes the more you know, the more you are able to do your work effectively. So that is what we have about organization culture. So what is important in organization culture is that you must always remember that organization culture has that three levels of culture. The external, outermost would be the artifacts, and deeper to the artifacts are those espoused values. And what governs those espoused values are the assumptions and beliefs within the organization. So that concludes our topic for today. Do you have any questions regarding organization culture? Anyone?
Doctor,
Yes.
can I know what is corporate culture?
Oh, okay. Corporate culture and organization culture are usually interchangeable, right? Although when you talk about corporate organization culture, will probably be uh, much more general. But when you talk about corporate culture, we think corporate culture as being those business culture. Organizations that are doing businesses are usually considered to be corporate, and they have a business culture. But in general, when you talk about any organization, when you talk about any group of people who are working interdependently with each other, then that would be an organization culture. And there would be an organization, and they would have certain assumptions, and they would have certain values that are being espoused, and they would have certain artifacts. So corporate is much more business oriented. That's all. Is that clear?
Thank you, Doctor. Yes,
Yes.
clear.
Nothing else? All right. You can always WhatsApp or email me if you have any questions that you need to further look into. In the meantime, I've already uploaded organization culture into the Putra Blast. You may retrieve the slides from there. So if nothing else, I think I want to,
Doctor,
right? Anything else?
I want to ask, is there no assignments at all for this course?
There are assignments. I haven't put them on Putra Blast yet, right? Okay, I will put them up soon.
Uh,
I will look into it. I
okay, thank
think.
you, Doctor.
Okay, there are assignments, and then we will have a final exam also. So I'll just give you one assignment for you to do. Would you prefer group assignment or individual assignments? I think in this case,
Individual.
I'll assign individual assignments because it's very difficult for you to meet. Okay? So there will be an individual assignment. I'll put that up on the Putra Blast soon. Good. Any others? Anyone? So if there's anything, we will adjourn and class is dismissed for this week. So I'll see you all again next week.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay?
Thank you, Doctor.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
Doctor.
Doctor.
Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, we'll be talking about action signs next week. And also model 1, model 2 behavior, and also single loop and double loop learning again. Okay? All right. Bye for now.
Bye, Doctor.
Bye.
Go home.
Bye, Doctor.